Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, he spent almost a quarter century with the Air Force. He retired as a major, and now he's bringing some of those life lessons that he learned in the military to corporate America. His journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I admire so much the hardworking men and women who served our country in the military. Think about all the life lessons they've learned: punctuality, teamwork, discipline, grit, overcoming obstacles, challenges, having a backup plan if the first plan doesn't work. Somebody who knows a lot about that, my good friend Brian Maddocks. He's a leadership expert and he's a retired Air Force major. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And we met at a conference, and he has the coolest jacket. I said, "Is that real?" And you said, "You bet."
Yeah, you bet.
Okay.
I got it in 1993 in my first flying assignment.
And you were telling me when you unpackaged it for the first time. I mean, did it smell like leather? What do you remember?
Oh yeah, it totally smelled like leather. Yeah, it was brand new. I was so excited. The Air Force at the time actually had just started a new program, kind of a pilot retention program back then. And hey, let's give them leather jackets, and that way we can compete with the airlines better. So we were all very excited to get our leather jackets.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Did you want to be in the military as a kid?
Yeah, my military journey started when I was about 9 years old. And I was really the last kid you would ever think would want to be a fighter pilot. I was just kind of timid. I like bugs. I like building model airplanes, things like that. But in the process of building model airplanes and hanging them on my ceiling, I really fell in love with airplanes. And one day I said, "Hey, I'm going to be a fighter pilot," and that one decision started the whole rest of my life, really.
And just to give the appreciation for how much hard work goes into it, you're in the academy for 4 years because
Yes, sir.
You're flying planes worth how much?
So the Air Force Academy is a college, right, in Colorado Springs, Colorado. You get through that, and then you go, at least I did, immediately into pilot training, and then it's 20 years after that. So I have really had the privilege of flying a lot of different airplanes. So I started off in special operations and C-130s, doing all the covert missions you hear about with the Navy SEALs, things like that. Flew trainer jets. I was in the F-15E Strike Eagle community for a while, and finished my flying career in the U-2 spy plane. Wow. And just, you're flying a jet worth $50 million. It has more firepower than a B-17 squadron from World War II.
And how old were you at the time?
30.
30.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of responsibility to put on a 30-year-old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We've got some pictures, and I want you to tell us what these pictures represent to you. What are we looking at?
So that's actually me in my spacesuit in a U-2 spy plane. I'm actually in the cockpit over somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, I'm sure. But yeah, the aircraft flies at 70,000 feet. You have to wear a spacesuit in case of rapid decompression.
Wow. And this next picture?
So that is me actually after my very last mission in the U-2 in the Middle East, and that's my hero shot from my Finney flight, and then I went off to do a couple different things. Went to school and ended up at Edwards Air Force Base doing flight tests.
Wow. We've also got some file tape, if you will, of different fighter planes. Will you talk about what you're looking at here?
Yeah. So this is the F-15 taking off in full afterburner. That's a 2-ship altitude. Here's 2 F-15s doing a break over an airbase, probably to land. Close fingertip formation. That's really fun. And man, that's just cloud hopping right there.
Does this bring back nice memories?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so much fun. You can't even talk about it without getting goosebumps. And just, F-15 overhead. A cool story about all of that is when I was going through F-15 training at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, what I would do, I would go look at the flight schedule, and my son, who was 2, almost 3 at the time, we would go out to the end of the runway with a 4-ship of F-15s taking off, and they go full afterburner, and you just get the airplane's this size, the afterburner trail's that big, and just this white, blue, yellow, orange plume, and the earth shakes, and we're like a couple 100 feet away. We'd park at the end of the runway just in the evening to go check it out. Wow. It was the coolest thing.
Well, I know you retired, and you retired as a major. That had to be kind of bittersweet, was it?
Very. Yeah, I didn't realize what the zipper suit meant. Okay, when I say the zipper suit, everybody's seen Top Gun, right? So you've got the green flight suit, and it's got a bunch of zipper suits on it, or a bunch of zippers on it. So pilots in the Air Force are sometimes jokingly referred to as zipper-suited sun gods, right? So you retire, you take that suit off, and like, okay, how do you follow that? Wow. And for me, I was like, I lived off base my whole career, no big deal. I'll just assimilate, it's fine. And man, it was, I didn't for a while.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, so many of the lessons that you learned can be applied to corporate America.
Yes.
And when you think about it, a well-oiled machine in corporate America is every different division is working together, and everybody has each other's back.
Theoretically.
Theoretically. But think about in the your role, it wasn't just you doing your job. Mechanics had to do their job. Like everybody had to do their job.
Right.
Talk about the importance of getting everybody together.
Exactly, and that's a kind of a segue into what I'm moving into in my career, because there's a lot of false parallels, correct and false parallels between business and the military, and the aspect that I really want to get into when I'm moving into is kind of what you alluded to a little bit earlier. 30 years old, and I'm flying a fighter jet with all this firepower, worth $50 million, and I'll go one better than that. At that age, not only are you flying one jet, you're a 4-ship flight lead. You're in charge of 4 of these things, or you could be an airborne mission commander, and you're in charge of the entire strike package of fighters, bombers, special ops, tankers, ISR assets, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. And that's you, and you're in charge of the whole bloody thing at 30-ish years old. So that those capabilities for a 30-year-old or someone like that, they're there. People are able to do this in a team environment, and I'll emphasize that because there's a couple of aspects to that. You've touched on both of them. One is the competency. One of the things that I struggled with when I got out of the military was, when I was in the military, I was trained for everything I did. I was highly trained for everything I did. When I got out of the military and went into business development, program management, things like that, mid-level management, if you will, I felt like I was just being, okay, here's a briefing and go read it and figure it out. And I got to go get on an airplane, to go talk to the customer and, hey, sorry, you can't come. And it was just a go figure it out for yourself process. And a lot of people are able to do that. I'm a big fan of the 80-20 rule. Maybe your 20% most talented people are able to do that, but there's a lot of people who struggle with that. And isn't that just kind of a waste of talent? Shouldn't we be bringing those people along more? So that's one aspect, is that individual competency. The other aspect really is, and I don't think this is a false parallel, is in the military, it's all about the warfighter, right? You go to any military forum and the warfighter. I'm still in the defense aerospace industry, and it's about the warfighter. Well, what does that mean? That's that lieutenant, captain, sergeant, that's that strike package leader, that F-15 pilot, that tank driver, I know you had a special ops guy on here a while back. I listened to that, and those guys, the entire DoD points at those people, and in corporate, it's the energy flows around the executive
Right.
part of the organization. What I want to address is this hybrid organization, this team of teams, right, where you're empowering those people at that mid-level, and then they're going to empower their people.
Yes.
And then everybody's happier, everybody's more productive, everybody's engaged, right? We hear about employee engagement as the number one, corporate, what's the right word? Corporate push, if you will,
Sure.
today. And that's how you do it. You flow that down and you empower those mid-level people. In fact, I'm sort of coining the phrase mid-level leader instead of mid-level manager, because in the Air Force, we were flight leaders, we were flight commanders, we were mission commanders, not managers.
Well, I can tell, Brian, you're going to be very successful in this arena, and I say that because you have great war stories. I mean, literal war stories where you can talk about, 20 years in the service and the lessons you learned, the things you did right and the things you did wrong. For the CEO who's watching this right now, who says, "Man, I might need to bring Brian in," what kind of problems do you help them solve?
So what I want to do is go into a corporate environment, and at the moment, I'm thinking smaller to mid-sized companies and business units, kind of like the environment that I work in. And let's talk about three things, and I mentioned two of them already. So there's three aspects to what I'm teaching. Number one is those leadership competencies, and when you talk leadership, there are so many. Good Lord, go to Barnes and Noble or look at Amazon. I think there's one key, and it's service. It's servant leadership. And if you go in with a mindset that I'm serving the people that work for me on my team, everything else almost takes care of itself if you have that mindset. The second issue is that the business structure. How do we aim all of this energy at those mid-level, at that mid-level junction, right? And then thirdly is, one of the things that I think makes me sort of unique at this is I've been through business school and I have a systems engineering degree. So there are frameworks and techniques to actually map all of this out so that it makes sense to people. I'm a big visual learner. Anytime I'm working with a team, everything's on a whiteboard. I use a technique called Scrum, very visual, very iterative, very interactive.
Yes.
So there is methodology for this. And a discipline methodology, and it's all proven.
Wow. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and for sharing your time and talents with corporate America, because I think so many companies need what you have. We're going to end with a website, which is brianmaddocks.com. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.